So we had so much fun with Beast Lord. We're going to take another look at a Quinto game. This one's Mythology. If you know me, you know I have a special interest in games with gods in them, but especially games where gods are manipulating people. This isn't quite what I'm aiming for, but it comes close. In here, the gods are going to be controlling and manipulating various heroes and monsters, etc., to try to score their own points. Now, this is probably not how I'm going to have it set up during play. I'm probably going to channel some of the gods up the sides. I've chosen to play with 6 players. Let's look at what we have. First, we have a god card. And these gods are assigned randomly to the different players. And this has some various charts and tables on the back. I have additional cards for gods that aren't in play yet, so that's not a big deal. Then we have these playing cards, which are divided into 3 sections: God, Event, and Oracle. And basically when you play it, you get to choose one of those 3. There are certain weird ways that you play that. The front of the God card has any special abilities that guy gives. There's going to be a counter for the gods. That's going to represent their location on the board. This is a fake counter. It's a grayish sort of thing. I covered up the number there. They've got a number on them which matches one of the numbers of one of the heroes. They fill up these locations here, and they serve sort of a dual purpose. Where they are here, they represent the death or birth of a leader, the hero. And basically, if the hero's on the board, he's taken off the board. If he's not on the board, there's a pile there, he's put on the board. If he's died, he's resurrected, which is all very interesting. These things, which are scoring counters for all the different gods, unfortunately they all look more or less the same. For some reason, they're in this orange, white, and green, or orange and white. There's a bunch of bad things that gods can do to areas and people: excess heroes, excess cards. What do we have on the table itself? Okay. The heroes are all clustered around Greece. And we'll look at their number values running across the top. The first number is the defense number. The middle number is an ID number, which matches one of those fake counters. And the rightmost number is the attack number. Now, some of them, like Medea, who's not really Greek and not really a hero, should be a helper or something, have a magic number on them. All the other counters more or less follow the same valuation. So we'll look at what else we have. Well, these red counters are monsters, and they're going to be the primary adversaries of the heroes. These black counters are little harassing human elements. They're an optional rule. We're going to play with 2 of the 3 optional rules. I'll talk about the rules in a bit. These are treasures. Treasures have a defensive number, or prizes. And these are bonuses for the different heroes to carry about. Bonuses come with different values. So, for example, these are swords. They have a plus to the attack value. Armor, well, this has a penalty to the attack value, but a plus to the defense. A bunch of stuff like that. Some of them add to your magic capability, whatever. Okay. The other important thing that there is a log sheet. And each player is going to have one of these. And basically, for each hero in the game, they have a column which they keep a running total, actually, of points that they spend on that. Each turn you're going to get, like, I think it's 10 points to expend on a bidding game. And this is kind of like, if you remember the old Kremlin video that I did, or if you've played Kremlin, where you put points secretly into things, except here you're putting it in every turn, the full amount of points. You're not bidding anew, though. It is a running total for the heroes. You're also allowed to use those points to bid on control over monsters, to cause some of these effects, to help or harm specific heroes, and finally, you can just bank some of them as victory points. And there's some things that allow you to, there's additional things you can spend them on in the optional roles, which we'll be using. Which is, I believe, the prayer and sacrifice table. Although those prayer might allow, I don't remember exactly the point values on those. Anyway, like what kind of points are used. These tracks here should actually have the current glory points that each player has. Glory points are going to be your victory conditions in the game. And you'll be tracking those over here as well. Now, like in Magic Realm and other games where you have to write orders, there's specific, letter codes that you put down. So, for example, you just put a bid down here on the C level for a hero, and the running total gets put in the T level. That's fine. But for monsters, you have to put, I don't know what it is, like, for monsters, you put the monster's ID number in the C level, and the power points you're expending on the T level. Divine occurrences, you write the code for what you want, and then the cost, the amount of power you're pumping in. Same with aid and ailment, glory of Zeus. You mark down basically what you're doing in the one on the C's, and on the T's, you mark down how many points you're putting in them. You have 10 power points each turn, and you can allocate them as you like. If you don't allocate them, you're throwing them away. You can't save them up. So you can bank them into a particular hero. All right. The playing cards, the 54 cards, the number of cards to player is based on the number of players playing. Each card has 3 sections, a god, an event, and an oracle section. The god section is actions taken by lesser gods. If a card is used to play this section, it may not be used for the other sections. That's always the case. The event section is activities which drew the attention of the major gods. If you play this section, you have to spend a glory point per god that you send to the event. When this section of the card is played, no other section is played. If the event calls for gods to go to a particular area of the map, the affected god or goddess counters are moved immediately to that area. If it calls for gods to go to Olympus or to a place which is not on the map, they're taken off the map. The oracle section represents what your oracle has told you that will bring you more glory and honor to the eyes of Zeus. This section is generally played when you do something, when you fulfill the requirements of the oracle, and then you get more glory than you would normally. You always have a certain number of cards in your hand. If you play one, you get another one. Okay. In order to use the god or event section of the card, you have to place the card face down in front of your player. And you won't be able to play it from the hand, and you won't be able to use it for anything else. Now, I think you also record something. Once a card is placed face down in front of you, oh no, any of the 3 sections can be played at any time during the current turn. If a card is played, it is placed in the discard pile at the end of the turn. If it's not played, it's discarded as well. You don't have to play a card. And if you wish to use the Oracle section, you can use it any time during the course of the turn that you meet the requirements. You're only allowed to play 1 card in a game turn. If you have one played face down in front of you, that card is either going to get played or discarded, and you may not play any other cards. You may choose to play it as an oracle instead of a god or an event, even though you played it face down. The god cards, no biggie here. They tell you what your special abilities are. Okay. The game is already set up, which is something I don't usually do with games like this that require player input into the setup. The reason it is because it's exceedingly mechanical situation, and it's also very, very painful. So I wanted to get this all set up rather than say a few words about the game and then walk away while I did this, because it actually took me about a day to get this all set up. Not because I was doing it for a day total like I would in something else, but because, you know, I'm not into playing as much as I used to be. Okay. So basically what happens is you put these treasures out first, and they have to be close to the edge of the world, close to the outer sea. And then kind of distant from each other. And then from there, you put down, I think it was these minor advantages. Yeah, I think the advantage cards counters were next, and those had to be a distance from Greece, basically. And then the monsters and the little monsters went out. And those also had to be a distance from Greece, but they can't any of them be in the same space, which means no monster can actually fully defend an item right at the beginning of the game, but the monsters move around and stuff, so we won't worry about that too much. And the big, I guess, issue that determined where things were going a lot was Poseidon has a lot of ability to help heroes over the water, and Demeter has a lot of ability to help heroes that are in the land, but most of the others kind of favor land. So not a lot of stuff went near or on the water. Now, the monsters could start in the water, but most other things cannot, and then all the heroes have to start near Greece. Okay. Now, there is a basic game for this. It looked really tiny. It's like 2 pages of rules, and I didn't even bother looking at it because it doesn't affect the main game. It doesn't have plotting. I don't know what the hell it does. Let's look at the sequence of play. So the first thing you do in a turn is you figure out what you're going to do and you write it down. Then you're allowed to play cards face down as god or event cards for later. Then each player rolls 11 to 66 dice, and the highest number has to place his god in an area on the board, and then the next highest gets to place a god in an area on the board, and basically they just slap down in that area. They don't have to actually be in a specific hex or whatever. That's just the area where they're influencing, where their power is the greatest. And when we look at the powers, you'll see some of them have powers that affect their area that they're in. Then each player rolls again, and whoever got the highest number is the moving player. Then the next player to his left becomes the moving player. Oh, this actually doesn't go next highest. It heroes. So you just roll off and see who gets to go first. And then you go clockwise, or counterclockwise in my case. Okay. Whoever is the moving player is going to be picking various pieces on the board, mainly monsters and heroes, revealing bids and moving them around if their bids are good enough. They also have the ability to move some of these. Then we hit the fate phase, and we look at the fate counters and see if new heroes or monsters, well, new heroes show up on the map. Okay. I'm going to pause there because I probably have to go to work soon. And I'm pretty sure this is chronic bronchitis, to tell you the truth. And there's only one real solution to that, which is, I mean, other than death, which is that I stop fucking smoking. All right. Okay, so let's see where we are. So the players then drop their god counters into specific areas. Not a biggie there. Okay. The big part of the game is the movement phase, where you're allowed to move other pieces. Heroes and monsters, I believe you're allowed to move these too, and those are in an optional role. Heroes can only move on land unless they have a ship. I don't know how you get a ship. You got the counters over here. But I don't remember how you actually get one. Okay. Monsters can move through any hex on the board. All movement, I think it's 2 hexes. Yeah, normal movement's 2 hexes. You might have modifiers though. Some of these hero modifiers can help you, and some of the gods can help you move faster. You can move through other counters. It's possible that 2 people move the same counter. There are reasons why that's unlikely, but it's certainly possible. Especially if they agree to work together. Because then they just don't challenge each other. There's complicated rules, to handle, so you can't walk across water here unless you have a boat, stuff like that. Okay, so you're allowed to try to move up to 5 counters. Now, what's not handled here is how you get to move them. And we're going to come to that a little later, or not how you get to move them, but what allows you to move a counter. Basically, that's going to be the bidding situation. That has its own section of rules. During the movement section, though, things like combat can happen. And combat happens when you're moving through a hex with another piece, or into a hex, or you stop after moving with another piece. Combat's voluntarily on at least one player's part. Either the moving or the controlling player has to announce, and the controlling player is the person who controls the non-moving counter. One of the counters in the hex is attacking the other. Now, combat is either between a hero and another hero, or a hero and a monster. And these, kind of like monsters, we'll deal with them in a bit. If you announce that you're going to, and unfortunately, your Quinto rules, man, they go into all this sort of midway through the thing. So instead of describing the flow of combat in general, the way an SPI game would, or describing everything procedurally, they just kind of step in. They don't tell you how you make the decision, what allows you to do the combat, and they don't give you an overview, and they don't give you anything. They give you this piece by piece but disjointed presentation. Your Quinto's just horrible. And I don't feel like playing the game to figure out how to tell you about it. When a monster is attacking a hero, both counters are going to roll dice for the combat. Now this is what's weird. If a hero attacks a monster, on the other hand, only the attacking player rolls the dice. The moving player can only announce combat after he's moved all his units, or his unit. But a controlling player can announce combat as the moving unit enters his space. You may select which unit out of several that you may attack. And you can only attack each unit once in a given moving player phase, or be attacked. Okay. Combat. They say there's only two types, normal and magical. That's not exactly true because depending on who's the attacker and things like that, the particular procedure that you follow is different. So it feels significantly different, and I think there are quite a few different types of combat. Magical combat is by units that have a magical combat number, though. Normal combat is by heroes and monsters. Okay, normal combat is normally each player rolls a pair of dice, red and white, 11 to 66. You add your attack number to the results from the die roll, and you compare the final combat number to the defense number of the unit you're engaged in. If you're equal or greater to the other unit's defense number, the other unit's killed and removed from the game. Okay, but this isn't, because we have this stupid thing here. When a hero attacks a monster, only the attacker rolls, right? Okay. And that's different. It's possible that both creatures will kill each other, and then both counters are removed from the game. If after rolling the dice neither unit's been killed, then you get to continue the process until one or both of the units are eliminated. In some cases, one unit can kill the opposing unit, but it's impossible for the other unit to kill the unit that can kill, and then you don't have to roll forever until you get a success. If two units are engaged in combat and it's apparent that neither can eliminate the other, the combat's stopped and the attacking player loses a glory point. Glory points are the victory points in the game. We're still not at where it discusses the hero-monster combat, and I don't remember where that is, but essentially what it is when the hero attacks, he rolls dice. If he hits the monster, he kills it. If he doesn't hit the monster, he is killed. And I'm not seeing that anywhere, but I know what the rule is. Okay, if you're doing magical combat, if you have magical ability, the player controlling the unit with magical ability rolls 2 dice. The resulting roll is read as a 2-digit number. If the number is equal to or less than the magical ability number, he kills the opposing unit. If it's greater than, then the unit using the magical ability is eliminated. Wow, that sounds very much like how I just described the monster combat. When a unit with magical ability is in combat with a non-magical, right. If both units have magical ability, then both roll the dice, and it's fairly likely that both units will be killed, one way or another that way. Now let me see. Yeah, so I think maybe the only thing here is when a hero attacks a monster, yeah, if the number rolled is great enough to kill the monster is eliminated. If it's not, the hero is eliminated. So that's the only place that rule is actually spelled out. Okay. There are combat modifiers. Like weapons might give you a +10 or whatever. The god sections might include some abilities. The god sections on these cards might include an ability if you've got that pre-played. I think those are the things, one of the things you have to have pre-played, everything except the whatever gives you points. Some of the hero helper counters give you bonuses. Some divine occurrences may have an effect. Okay, great. Now, to the thing that allows us to do this movement in combat, this would have been wise to have beforehand, is the idea of hero and monster control. Each player attempts to control hero counters, etc. You do not have control over a unit. You do not have to have control over a unit to attempt to move the unit. And the same with monsters. And the same with heroes. So I don't know what the hell a unit counter is. I think it's monsters and heroes, which are, I think, the only things you can move in the base game. I don't remember. A hero or monster must be under a player's control in order for that player to get glory points for the activity other than movement, however. Control of a particular counter may shift from turn and player. Whoever played the most or paid the most power points up to the current game turn, and you get 10 of these a turn, is the player who controls a given unit counter. However, the controlling player may allow other players to move the unit. A hero counter control is cumulative, and the number of power points available to determine the control of the unit counter is the total of all the power points spent on that counter thus far in the game, except you have to spend 1 power point each turn to keep your running total running. Otherwise, it drops to 0, which is interesting. Monster unit control is not cumulative, and it's however many points you spend on that turn that gets you the monsters. You're allowed to try to move 5 unit counters during your movement phase. You select a counter that you'll attempt to move, announce the counter's name and ID. If no one challenges it, then you may move it. If after you've announced its name and identification, another player challenges the attempted move, the players determine who actually controls the counter in question. The moving player announces the power points that he has. Basically, you're allowed to bid them up. You don't just, announce how many you actually have. It's a little different. If it ends in a draw, then you go to the Zeus arbitration table, which is over here somewhere. And I don't know what the hell you do. That's a weird looking table. Okay. Let's see. If 2 or more players are attempting to control a monster and they both spent the same number of power points, there'll be a different procedure which we won't bother explaining right now, nor giving you a reference to, because we're Quinto and we don't have to do that shit. Okay, Zeus arbitration. Each player obtains a dice roll modifier from the Zeus arbitration table on his god card, looking under the arbitration, the name of the hero. Okay, so here we've got like a 19, which I guess is a plus 19 that Hermes has. And each god probably has different advantages to each of the heroes. Then you roll dice and add that to the modifier, and if you have the mostest, you're the moving player. And I don't know what you do if you tie again. Cry. If you tie for monster, it's the same except you don't use die roll modifiers. And there I don't mind that you're rolling again. If the player who originally attempted to move the counter is the controlling player, he can move the unit counter. If he issued the challenge, if the challenger wins, then the moving player may not move the unit counter. Challenges are optional. You may know you have control over a unit that another player is attempting to move, but for your own reasons choose not to challenge it. Now this is weird because I don't know who controls a counter if nobody's revealed any points on it or something. And control is important for other reasons. Now you do have control if you're moving the counter, so yeah. So if somebody lets you move it, you do have control, which means you'll get the victory points for it, which means you probably don't want to let other people move pieces unless you have some sort of agreement. Or at least they're moving it in the right direction and aren't getting any points. If the player attempting to move a counter loses a challenge, that counts as one of his 5 things that he can try to move. Divine occurrences. The gods are able to do divine occurrences. There are 6 different types listed here. You can use any or all of these. Basically, you have to plot them over in this area of your chart and pay power points for them. They cost power points. Power points allocated are not cumulative. They only apply on the turn you played them. When you activate one, the activating player selects a Divine Occurrences unit counter that matches the occurrence he's causing and drops it into the area on the map board. So an earthquake, that'll be marked down with an E. You roll dice, you get a 2-digit result, and compare the modified die roll to the defense number of each hero counter in the affected area. All hero counters with a defense number less than the modified earthquake total are killed and removed from the game. You get modifiers 10 for each power spent to cause the earthquake. Now, I don't think you can do one with 0 points. I think you have to spend at least 1 point for any divine occurrence. Log sheet notation T is a tempest. This is exactly the same as an earthquake, except only hero counters affected are those aboard ships in the affected area. Volcanoes. A V, this is exactly like an earthquake, except the volcano accepts only a single hex, and the die roll modification is 20 per power point. Plague, this is a P. A plague affects an area in which it's placed. At the conclusion of all the moving player phases, the player causing the plague rolls 2 dice, reading the red die first, and it gets a 2-digit number. The result is modified by adding 20 for each point that was spent to cause the plague. The modified total of the dice roll is then compared to the defense number of each hero occupying a hex in the area. If the roll is higher than the defense number from the hero is eliminated and removed from play. Well, how is this terribly different from an earthquake? Not terribly, except it's more efficient. Why? Geez, I don't know, but some of the gods give abilities for and against plagues and such not. Pestilence, this is kind of like the plague. You roll dice, you get plus 20 per power point. Defense number. But instead of killing, it prevents the hero from moving. That makes some sense. You got, a slightly different capability there. Famine, F. You only get plus 10 per power point allocated. If you compare to the defense number, if you're equal to or greater than the defense number, the hero has his defense and attack reduced by half for the remainder of the game turn. Why would you want to do that? I don't know. Maybe if you want to challenge that guy and beat him and get victory points from it. I'm not sure why that would be an advantage, but it might be. You can only do divine occurrences in the area occupied by the god counter, unless there's some other statement on the card. They never affect anything other than heroes, and they only take place even though they were plotted. If the god counter is in the area, then they will occur only in that area. Okay. Hero helpers. That's these green counters that you see all about. When a hero counter enters a hex with a hero helper and no other hero or monster is there, he gets it. Counter's put on top of the hero to indicate he has it. It can be used in combat or attempting to capture a prize. It has no effect on divine occurrences. They have numbers printed that correspond to the hero numbers, attack number, impediment against unit counters, I don't know, whatever. The bonuses for attack and defense are simply added. There's no limit to the number of hero helper counters that a single hero can have with them. But hero movement can never be raised more than 4 hexes. These can be moved with the hero, or they can be dropped off, left in a hex, whatever. If you have 1 or more hero helper counters and you're killed and removed from the game, the helper counters remain in the hex until picked up by another hero. Only heroes can pick them up. If a monster occupies the hex, the monster has to be moved or killed before a hero can pick up any of the counters. Prizes. That's these suckers. So these are worth glory points. Prizes may not be moved until they've been captured, and then they can be moved along with the hero counter that captured them. The hero counter must end its move occupied by that prize counter. After any combat, he can attempt to capture it. He rolls 2 dice, reading the red die, and gets a 2-digit number. This is modified by any hero helper counter that's with the hero and by the attack number. It's not modified by anything else. The final modified result is compared to the defense number of the prize. If it's equal to or greater than the defense number, the prize is captured. If it's less, the prize is not captured, no glory is scored, and the prize cannot be moved. You can make one attempt per moving player to capture a prize. If the attempt fails, you may not make another attempt until you're the moving player again. If you have a prize and you're killed, the prize is left where it lies. If the prize is captured by a hero and that hero is killed, any other hero wishing to take the prize must attempt to capture it. Prizes cannot be taken away from one hero by another. You're going to have to kill somebody and then pick it up off the ground using the finding rolls, essentially. After each player drawn a fate counter from the pile... Oh, okay, I didn't explain these. So everybody's got one of those fate counters there. Those match up to something. Something that I don't know. Back of the roll. Those match up to these, which are a modifier to your victory points. They will give you additional victory or glory points that you get for other things. And some might be penalties as well, I'm not sure. They also tell you a hero whose number has been pulled and will not be affected by the fates. They will neither die nor be born or raised or anything. And that's about it. Otherwise, as these come out, they bring new guys out. Okay, Hercules. Hercules, because he is so mighty, and he's actually in here. There's a historic setup, which is kind of a cute idea, but which puts the monsters and treasures where the myths kind of seem to indicate that they were. Shit. I hate this chair. I fall out of it. Okay, so Hercules has a couple of issues going with him. First of all, he can't be killed in normal combat with another hero or monster. If he's involved in combat with one of these, he wins, and the other counters removed from the game without any die rolls. Hey, Hercules sounds pretty good, right? Hercules can be killed if he's involved in a combat with a magical ability counter. The magical combat is fought in the normal manner. If Hercules is slain, he's removed from the board like any other counter. If he's involved in combat, you have to check to see if Hercules feels bad because Gru erred. And he runs off to purge himself. After a combat's taken place, the player who last moved Hercules rolls 2 dice and gets a 2-digit number. This is compared to Hercules' attack number. If the number rolled is less than his attack number, which is quite large, Hercules feels bad. In which case, his counters turn face down, and in the moving player phase and all in that turn, he'll move 2 hexes. This is free and doesn't count against the 5 units allowed. There's no challenge. And then the next turn, he's left face down again, and each moving player may move Hercules 2 hexes again the same way as before. At the end of the following full game turn, Hercules is purged, and he's turned face up and returns to the normal gameplay. When he's face down, he may not attack and may not be attacked. He cannot pick up things. All he can do is move. If he had a helper or a prize, he drops him off and leaves screaming and crying. He can be killed by a divine occurrence. If he's affected, he has a defense number of 120 to check that. And if somebody kills him, they lose 10 glory points immediately. They really piss Zeus off in that case. All right, breaky time. So if you get a ship, you can't do anything but move across water. But you are allowed to sail up rivers. Okay, so here's how you get one. Yeah, let's discuss all the stuff about what can happen if you have one before you find out how to get one. You have to begin on a shoreline, not a river. You roll 2 dice, 11 to 66, everything pretty much is. You have to roll less than the hero's defense number. And then you get a ship counter. Okay. And you can roll once each time you attempt to move as a moving player. If you want to attack, move inland, attempt to capture a prize, pick up a hero, helper counter, you must leave the ship. Now this is weird because monsters and these things are in the water, and I don't think you should have to leave the ship when you fight those, but we'll see. And you still only move 2 hexes. Okay, the game is won by whoever has the most glory points. Well, how do you get these? After 15 turns, you count the glory, or if all the prize markers have been removed from the game. Now this is weird, because some of these victory conditions include points for each prize still left on the board at the end of the game. So those who have to try to run out the clock and prevent heroes from taking the prizes. So you keep track of whatever glory points you got on the current game turn on the map board. And you adjust the glory points gained and lost. Okay, so they do go into the negatives. And at the end of the turn, you total glory points you've gotten and adjust your total over here. There are some cases where you can write them down immediately, I guess. If you play a card which causes you to gain glory points in a game turn, you turn the card face up and you do not record the points on the track. At the end of the turn, you add the points from the track to the points from the card. Because those can be bigger chunks of points, I guess. I don't know. Glory points are obtained for various activities that take place. Okay, to the glory of Zeus. Whenever you spend power points for this, you get glory. And it's 1 for each 4 power points allocated during a turn. Capturing prizes. When a hero that you control first captures a prize, you get glory points. If you don't have a card that gives you special points for that prize, then you get 5 glory points for each prize captured. If you have a prize counter, if you capture the prize counter and you have a card which has a special glory point award for it, you get the points from the card instead. I hope it's instead. I can't tell for sure. If a player had already had a hero capture a prize and has already been awarded the glory points as stated above, and is in some later game turn able to move the capturing hero with the prize into the area of Greece while the hero is controlled, then that player gets a glory point bonus of 50. Now, I don't know how you keep track of what player had the hero capture the prize. So to me, it's if the hero brings that prize back, it's worth 50 points. No god may ever receive points for capturing the same prize 2 or more times in a game. How do you keep track of that? Even if different heroes capture the same prize. No indication how that's going to be done. Except players may, if they elect remove a prize counter, this is an option, may remove a prize counter from the board at the time of capture. While this would prevent them from ever taking it back to Greece, it would prevent other players from having the opportunity to capture it. I guess each player could mark which prizes they've captured on their log to prevent them from ever getting the points for it again. But the same hero can recapture the prize for other gods. And if you write down that you captured the prize, then you'd be the only people eligible for the 50 as people who have captured the prize. So other players wouldn't want that god to bring the prize back. Now what's weird is, I don't know what happens if the hero drops the prize and then picks it back up. Do they get the points for it? Is all that. I don't know. And that's the joy of Yaquinto, isn't it? When you kill a monster counter, you get glory. It's 3 points for each monster killed unless you have a special card that gives you more. And again, we don't know if it's more or instead of. When you kill a hero, You may either gain or lose glory points. When the hero is killed, all players have to announce how many power points they had available for control on that hero. Whoever has the highest total is the controlling player. The player responsible for killing the hero takes victory points available to the controlling player and divides it by 5. Oh, the number of power points that have been allocated by the controlling player, and divides it by 5, rounding up to the nearest whole number. That number is the number of glory points that the player responsible for killing the hero receives. If the controlling player had less than 5 allocated, then it's still 1 glory point. And you must have controlled. If after a hero counter is killed, no one had any power points allocated to his control, and that includes the killing player, by the way, the killing player loses 5 glory points. This could happen even if somebody appeared to have controlling interest in a hero, but then didn't pay for them for a round. They can't lie about the points that they have allocated, like if they haven't revealed. Each time a moving player successfully moves a hero counter for his phase of the game turn, he gets a glory point. So you could try to move 5 heroes and get 5 victory points that way. Challenging hero movement. Every time you challenge the hero counter movement of another player, one of the players will get glory points. If the challenging player obtains control of the hero, the challenging player gets a glory point, and that's recorded on the track. If the moving player is the controlling player, the moving player gets a glory point for winning the challenge and another for moving the hero. So there's a reason you might not want to challenge. If a player challenges the control of the hero, the player who loses the challenge always loses 1 glory point. At the end of the game, players reveal the fate unit that they drew, and they get any special victory conditions based on what they have there. And those don't look like they're huge, but we'll see. Optional rules. So one of the optional rules is to add a Zeus player into the game. That Zeus player is going to be in charge of, okay, there's certain times when, if there's a tie, you roll off to see which side Zeus chooses, right? Based on these values. Zeus just gets to decide that. And also there's options for prayer and sacrifice, which we'll hit in a bit. But instead, Zeus gets to choose what prayer or sacrifice he gives. In exchange for that, players give him glory points, and that's pretty much the deal. Zeus also can throw lightning bolts, which can attack things, and you can kind of bribe Zeus, and that's about it. Zeus has no power points. He doesn't control anything on the board. It's kind of like games like, I don't know, some of the SPI games had things like this, like after the Holocaust had the Federal Reserve, and Conquistador had the bank player. Well, this gives someone that the only way they can win is other people making them win. It feels very unbalanced and unlikely that people would actually make them win, but we don't know, you know. The dynamics of groups can be weird. Prayer and sacrifice. This is another option. We'll try this one. Players, we're not going to use the Zeus just because there's already a lot more knowledge about things than I like in a game, and I feel like the Zeus is going to make it more difficult for me to play and make decisions. You know, it's like playing a diplomacy game or something. It's just harder, and I'd rather neglect that than add it to the game. That's not quite the word I wanted. Okay, so in order to do this, you use this table here, the prayer and sacrifice table. You mark a PR or an S for prayer or sacrifice, and the number of glory points you're spending, not power points. These will be lost whether they're used or not. We look at the column based on the glory points that you're spending. and you get a bonus. So let's see. The player then determines the correct column to use on the prayer sacrifice player. It's plus 10 for points spent. So the first 10, 20, 30. So these are actually 1 point, not, yeah. And the results are applied to a hero unit counter. And they last for the entire game turn from the time that they're used. While a hero counter is protected by the results of prayer and sacrifice, the counter may not attack another counter in the turn in which it's bonused. All prayer and sacrifice is checked prior to any player taking a moving player phase. Hero helper counters and prize counters can be used as a sacrifice or as part of a sacrifice. Helper counters count as 5 glory points spent on a sacrifice, and prizes count as 10. This is a nice way to eliminate a prize you're carrying along. In order to sacrifice a prize, you must have previously captured and removed. It must have been previously captured and removed from play by the sacrificing player or be in the hex with a hero that the player controls. So you either have to have it in your pile or the hero has to have it. In order to sacrifice a hero helper counter, that counter must be the property of one of the sacrificing player's heroes, or it must have been removed from the game by that player and in his possession. Lesser evil unit counters, that's these things, little humans here. They're set up kind of like other things, and I won't worry too much. Any god counter occupying an area with one or more lesser evil counters may move any of them, and they don't count against the 5 hero and monster units that could be played. If more than one god counter occupies the same area, then both get to move them. They're not affected by divine occurrences. They move in combat like monsters. They're not subject to being controlled. If they kill a hero, the moving player gets or loses the glory points if the lesser evil counter is attacking. If a hero kills a lesser evil counter, the controlling player gains 1 glory point. Lesser evil counters and monster counters cannot attack each other. The pirates can move on all water hexes. The others have to be partially land. There's a historical setup. Summary of all the different things that are worth glory points, special victory conditions, and that's about it. And we'll give this a shot. And you see, I was capable of playing this, I don't know, easily all day today. I could have been playing it. But I've spent an entire day on giving you the damn rolls, which is part of why I don't want to do these. The review, not so big a deal, but going through the rules, yeah, it's, look, I haven't spent the day. I've been working and everything. But I could have played a few turns, in that same time. All right, up it goes.